It is absolutely impossible to A/B test on Facebook. There's really three clear trends that people should be aware of and reacting to. And this is one thing that so many people get. You can tell if an ad is failing very quickly. It's better at finding the right audience for you, a lot better than you are at finding the audience yourself.
How many ads should you test on Facebook and when should you cycle them out?
There's nothing deterministic about how Facebook's algorithm works. Because of the way it determines what ad's good and what ad isn't, the same ad will work extremely well as fall on its face in two separate ad sets. Even if you're targeting the same audience, there's a lot of randomness. So you have to generate a lot of content. Going to the idea of A/B testing on Facebook, there is no way, it is absolutely impossible to run a clear, deterministic, and repeatable A/B test on Facebook. That just doesn't exist because of how the algorithm works. And so what you end up having to do is, if you have a hypothesis, like people are going to react to a lifestyle ad versus people are going to react to a products and features ad, you have to generate 10 lifestyle ads and 10 product feature ads and run those in their own groups to see which group performs best. So in terms of how many ads you should run, that depends on the type of structure you're using. If you're using conversion-focused campaigns, no more than 6 per ad set. If you're using ASC, you can get up towards 40 and 50. However, you should only really expect a small handful, even as low as 1, to really drive the performance. And if you want to test on Facebook, then you have to create clusters to test your hypothesis, because there's no such thing as A/B testing on Facebook. It just doesn't work that way anymore.
When do you determine when an ad is failing?
So you can tell if an ad is failing very quickly because the Facebook algorithm decides whether or not your ad is good very quickly. The way that Facebook, TikTok, all these things work is they take your piece of creative and first it shows it to 10 people and it sees how those 10 people react to that content. Then it shows it to 100 people and it sees how they react to it. And through each tranche of that, it's giving your piece of creative a score. And depending on the score, it'll show it to more people at a cheaper rate if it's a good score, and a more expensive rate if it's a bad score. So you can normally tell based on how that ad is performing compared to the other ads in your account, if that ad is going to work. I mean, within a couple hours normally, because Facebook makes a determination about whether or not your ad is worth promoting to the rest of its audience at a good rate very early in the process. And you can see that in the way the ad starts trending.
What determines a good Facebook ad?
Performance. Always, right? A good Facebook ad is going to drive a lot of users at a cheap CPA at a high ROAS. Now, what goes into making a good Facebook ad is really dependent on the audience and the brand. There's tons of different formats you can use. I think for anyone who's doing under 100 million, you can go out and look at your competitors and see what's working for them. What have they been running for a long period of time? It's a great indicator of an ad that's working, and you can borrow those ideas. Facebook has a public ads library, so you can go and you can look at all your competitors and you can go utilize those ideas in your own ads. I think that's the quickest way for any SMB, small, medium business in the D2C space to make Facebook work, because there's just some tried and true themes, frameworks, structures, etc., that work on Facebook. Great example is the us versus them ad. Positioning your product against either a lack of using a solution, against a competitor's product, against the old way of doing it, like when we work with CBD clients, positioning CBD versus a glass of wine at night versus a hangover, things like that. Those types of ads work in every single industry and they do extremely well, like high ticket services businesses all the way down to, $40 D2C products. There's a ton of examples like that out there. You just need to go find them.
What about carousel versus single static versus video?
I think in 2024, when you look at what's working, it's really that the format is dependent on the message of the ad. If you have something like a sale is a great example of a good time to use a static. Same with a launch, because you can very quickly convey the product in an image, the sale or the launch in the text. It's a very easy way to convey a lot of information really quickly. And in 2024, we're starting to see statics work very, very well again. Videos, on the other hand, can be used to sell more of a lifestyle, to sell more of an aspiration, right? You get a lot more visual content to work with, but you also have to engage someone actually into watching the video. So you have to really focus on the hook. You have to get them interested, which can be a little more difficult than just throwing it on an ad. And a carousel can be really good for engaging someone through a story. So if you want to take someone on a journey and you want to give them information that they can self-discover over time, carousel can work really well there, and works really well, especially for brands who have like science backing and stuff like that, and they want to explain their story. All of them work as long as you match it to the correct content.
What are some best practices for optimizing Facebook ad campaigns for e-commerce brands, specifically for audience targeting and ad creative?
The number one thing that brand owners ask of us that just isn't how you do things anymore is audience targeting. The way that you target your audiences these days is actually with your creative. And a lot of people don't get that. And I see a lot of founders, VPs of marketing, people overseeing agency relations, which when Facebook isn't working, they're like, well, why aren't we doing more audience targeting? And the thing is, as long as you're generating new creative with new hypotheses, you are. But you don't actually want to go into the ad set and mess with lookalikes or demographic-based targeting or any of that. Due to the rise in privacy technology, and then due to the increase in Facebook's targeting capabilities through its AI and machine learning, it's better at finding the right audience for you, a lot better than you are at finding the audience yourself. And so the way you target your audience now is through your creative. What Facebook does is when you launch an ad set with a broad campaign, it takes your creative and it shows it to first 100 people, then 1,000 people, then 10,000 people. It scores your creative overall, but it also looks at who is interacting with this. Is it blue collar, middle America men? Is it coastal, higher education women? Is it, people who are also interacting with shoe brands, right? What are the common behavioral traits that they're showing? And based on seeing the shared demographic qualities and the shared behavioral qualities of people who are interacting with your creatives, it will go and push that creative to a subset of its overall audience who has those traits. So this is another reason that who interacts with your creative early on ends up really determining how that creative performs, because it also determines who that creative gets shown to. So again, part of the fact that if you relaunch the same creative in multiple different broad targeting ad sets, it will end up potentially in front of different people because of those early signals it gets. If you really want to target a specific audience, like let's say you have kids apparel and you have adult apparel. The kids apparel really is for, more for like moms shopping for their children, where the adult apparel maybe has more of a general adult aesthetic. You want to put all your kids ads in one ad set, and you want to put all your adult ads in another ad set. Even though those are both broad targeting, which is 100% what you should be doing, those two ad sets will end up targeting very different subsets of the Facebook population. And that's how you do audience targeting these days. It's by grouping your creative in terms of the people that you want that creative to get in front of, and Facebook will take care of the rest.
So you're not even changing the age range or like women or demographic? You're not changing any of that information?
Yeah, don't touch it. Facebook goes and figures out who should be viewing your ads. And this is one thing that so many people get wrong. They think they know who's reacting to their ads. Trust me, Facebook's artificial intelligence algorithm knows a lot better who's going to interact with your ad most. Yeah, we don't do 18 to 65 plus and the entire Facebook network. Obviously, if you don't ship to Turkey, don't include Turkey or anything like that. But aside from the constraints of where we can ship our brand's products to, let Facebook do everything else.
What about when you select like traffic, sales? Do you leave that alone as well? What changes are made there?
If you're an e-commerce brand, 99% of the time, if you want purchases, tell Facebook to get you purchases. If you tell Facebook, I want you to get me people who are going to enter their email, it will go and get you people who will enter their email and do nothing else. If you say, I want to go target people who are going to purchase, it will go look for users who are the most likely to purchase, who are the most expensive users. So if you ask it to get you traffic, it'll get you a bunch of traffic that doesn't do anything. If you ask Facebook to get you emails, it'll get you a bunch of emails that don't do anything. If you want purchases, you have to ask Facebook to get you purchases. Another thing, anti-pattern that I see people doing in terms of looking at the data is they say things like, oh, the CPMs went up because we switched to a conversion campaign. This traffic campaign I'm running has really low CPM. It's like, yeah, because Facebook knows those are not valuable users. So in Facebook's auction, it doesn't charge a lot for them. If you want the highest value action from the highest value users, you're going to pay the most to get them. But if you want that action, tell Facebook that's what you want.
As Facebook's advertising landscape continues to evolve, what trends do you see emerging, and how should e-commerce brands adapt their strategies accordingly?
So when you look at Facebook over the last 12 to 18 months, there's really three clear trends that people should be aware of and reacting to. One is in targeting, one is in creative, and one is in data. Targeting, the trend that everyone should be aware of is do not use Facebook's targeting. Let Facebook figure out the targeting for you. Use your creative to target. Make sure you understand your brand personas. Make sure you understand who you're trying to talk to and how you're trying to resonate with that audience, and put together creative that you think will do that, and Facebook will go put that in front of the right person. You use your creative to target. You do not use Facebook's targeting mechanism to target. So that's on the targeting side. From a creative side, the huge trend in 2023 was UGC. If you took a brand and you launched UGC, you would see these massive step function improvements, 50% increase on the accounts, on fairly large accounts. We're starting to see the trend move back to statics. If you think about the reasoning for this, no one was doing UGC, so UGC looks so organic. Like, this isn't an ad. This is some random influencer telling me about product they love. Now everyone knows that strategy and like the gig is up. And so now you're seeing people go back to statics because now it is the different form of advertising. So from a creative trend point of view, the main thing is it's always changing, because you're kind of always in this game of tricking people into thinking you're not an ad for at least 1 to 2 seconds so that they actually get emotionally invested enough to finish the rest of it. The more people utilize one creative format or strategy, the more accustomed people become to that and the less effective it becomes. You don't have to be the first. You don't have to be reinventing the wheel. You just have to be on top of how the industry is changing. Check out the Facebook ads library. Honestly, just go like a bunch of other brands in your space and you'll get all their ads. And as long as you're in the top 30%, you're going to do great. You just don't want to be the laggard. So it's targeting in creatives, and last is in data. Every year at the iOS release, we see Facebook ROAS drop, even though store-wide ROAS does not. What does this tell us? Every year, privacy technology gets more aggressive and Facebook loses access to more data. With the death of cookies over the next 6 months, we're going to continue to see a degradation in the visibility of every platform. Klaviyo, Facebook, Google, all these platforms, it's going to become harder for them to advertise effectively and drive good ROAS for your business. And so if you're not investing in a first-party data solution, you're going to fall behind. If you haven't already invested in one, you already are behind, but it's going to go from you're going slower to you're not able to keep up in the race. And you're going to see brands die because they're not investing in modern data solutions that allow them to utilize first-party data to get Facebook, Klaviyo, Google, TikTok back to where they need to be to support their business.
For brands making over $3 million a year, what is the baseline strategy that can help scale their brand?
One of the most important things to scaling is creating a creative flywheel. As an example, we have a brand that we've scaled from 2 to 16 million over an 18-month period. And one of the most important parts of that process has been building a creative process where we generate 8 videos a month, as well as dozens of statics every month. And we're just constantly launching these things, holding on to what works, getting rid of what doesn't. All of that rolls up to a hypothesis. All of it rolls up to a strategy, but there is a very important piece of just volume. No matter how good your strategy is, you just need volume because your ads atrophy over time, and you just never really know what's going to work because there's just way too many variables.
So you have the money to put into Facebook ads and you're doing it, but you're not scaling. What should you try?
One extremely helpful mental model for understanding how to scale Facebook is the idea of how many people are actually in your purchasing window at any time. Let's say you sell baby clothes is a great example. People are only looking to buy baby clothes when they have a baby. Once the baby is a toddler, they're no longer buying the baby clothes. And so there's a sliding window of people who are actually in your market at any given time. As you expand and want to capture more and more of people in that sliding window, you need to have a more and more generally relatable message. You have to be able to speak to different demographics of people who are in that cohort who's ready to purchase your product. And so if you're having a hard time scaling, it means that you need to appeal to a wider audience. Either your ads, your individual ads need to appeal to a wider audience, or you have to have many different ads that appeal to specific audiences. Both ways that you can scale depending on the product, depending on the market. There's only so many people who are ready to buy any specific product at any time. The trick is, are you maximizing your opportunity there? And if not, how do you create better creatives to maximize that opportunity? Stanley is probably the best example I have ever seen of how changing product positioning can lead to more sales. Stanley was for like blue collar workers who took a lunch pail to work, right? And that's like really what it was. It was like a thermos, it was utility. They hired the chief marketing officer from Crocs as their new CEO. And he said, I'm gonna make this thing fun. And he did colors and gradients. And then he went to Gen Zs and told them that it was a status symbol. And now they have blown up, right? You took a brand that was just stagnant for 40 years, which has had this massive hockey stick type of revenue resurgence. And it was all because the CEO realized that if he added some colors and changed the way they marketed it, he could appeal to a much wider audience.
When you start working with a new e-commerce brand and you tap into their Facebook ads manager, what's a typical problem you come across?
The thing that we see most often is over-segmented targeting and bad creative. And they haven't adjusted to the post iOS 14 world where you really want to run broad and use your creative to target. Those are the two things I think I see most. The audience targeting portion is very easily fixable. The creative portion is much more difficult.
Would you say there is a specific process that they should go through with creatives? What is the process that you think makes a well-oiled machine?
One thing is you do need to understand who you're trying to target and what your message is. High volume does not mean throw shit against the wall, right? Like you still have to have a strategy. Someone still has to think through it. Understand what is your product? What are the selling points? Why do people value it? Is such an important one that so many founders miss. So many founders have built their product, and so they're proud of the like round edges and the type of metal that's used and like all these little details that probably make it a great product, but that the end user doesn't care about. The founder who built the product typically knows, oh, we use titanium instead of aluminum because it's way more robust, less likely to break. But if you market it in terms of we use titanium, no one else knows that. So that's one thing we see a lot of founders not understanding is don't talk about the features and functionality, talk about the value that your users get from those features and functionality. So that's one thing that's really important is being able to distill down that value and then being able to generate a hypothesis of how you're going to use that value to market. And then it's just a lot of creating a lot of stuff. Getting your UGC videos created. If you can get production quality video, getting that created, getting your photos shot using AI, and then taking all of those raw assets and cutting it up into tons of different formats. Just to give a window into the way that we end up generating as many videos as we do for our clients. One, we have a process that's generating at minimum one UGC video every single week. On top of that, we have raw assets from the client, which we take and mix with AI to create new images. On the video side, we now have every UGC creator sends in 2. We then take all that raw content and we cut it up, different creators together. We figure out which shots can be used as B-roll across any. And then we go online and we get professional voice actors to do voiceovers that we write the scripts for. So now we're generating ads with the UGC, as well as generating B-roll and content that we can use to create kind of infinite possibilities. And once you get all that working, now you have the ability to generate a very high volume of ad creatives on a weekly basis. It's a lot to set up, but once you have it working, it's the easiest way to scale a Facebook account.